What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we are going to do a full story video. A full story video is when I sit down, take a bunch of videos, and combine them together into one big video. Now, with that being said, the smaller videos do tell one overarching storyline usually. Now, today's full story video is going to be about Ultimate Invasion. This story just wrapped up very recently, but it's Jonathan Hickman right now trying to bring back the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And with that being said, he used the Maker as a way to bring back the Ultimate Marvel Universe with Ultimate Invasion. And the way it works is technically the Maker resetting the Ultimate Marvel Universe in his own image. But at the same time, he fails when it comes to trying to make a better universe. Now, when it comes to these videos, we were covering these videos piece by piece, so issue by issue. And so if you watch the videos, you're going to see at first, we had no idea what was happening until we got to later chapters, and really the last chapter as well. And so here is Ultimate Invasion, the beginning of the return of the Ultimate Marvel Universe. I do hope you enjoy. What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. All right, guys, so we are finally here. My gosh, we are finally here. The return of the Ultimate Marvel Universe with Ultimate Invasion #1, written by Jonathan Hickman. Now, if you're new to my channel, let me explain what we do here. So we basically sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. But when it came to my channel, it actually started with the Ultimate Marvel Universe because I love the universe so much. But on top of that, it was a way for me to actually get into comics, which honestly, for a lot of readers in the early 2000s. And let me explain why. So in the late 1990s, Marvel was struggling really bad. Like, they were struggling in the late 1990s because they lost a lot of readers over that decade. And so when it came to the early 2000s, they were like, we need a plan to regain old readers, but to also gain new readers as well. And that gave birth to the Ultimate Marvel Universe. Now, with that being said, the reason why Ultimate Marvel Universe actually worked because it was less complicated and easier to follow at its time. Because in the early 2000s, you have to realize, if you were trying to jump into comics as a new reader, it was very hard for you to actually do that because you jumped into a series that had over 100, 200, 300 books. And so it was basically hard to actually get into those books. But when it came to Ultimate Marvel, in the early 2000s, it was a fresh start. But on top of that, it gave writers more freedom to do what they want with those characters. And what I mean by that is they were able to tell better origins or better stories for characters in that universe rather than in the main Marvel universe. Because when it came to the main Marvel universe, you had a lot of restrictions like, hey, here's a character, write about that character, but at the same time, you're kind of controlled on what you could possibly do with that character. But when it came to Ultimate Marvel, it was kind of like, no, you have more freedom to do what you want with those characters, just hoping you're able to actually tell a better story with those characters in that universe. And of course, it worked out. Because Ultimate Marvel became popular. You had Ultimate Spider-Man, X-Men, Fantastic Four, the Ultimates. You had a lot of things actually going well for the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And matter of fact, it lasted for 15 years, all the way up to 2015, Secret Wars. Now, Secret Wars was this big storyline that was done back in 2015. And basically, in that storyline, you had the death of the multiverse, which meant the end of the Ultimate Marvel universe. Now, at the end of that story, you did have the return of the multiverse, but the question was, though, did the Ultimate Marvel universe come back as well? Now, you would think that with the multiverse being back, yes, it would come back as well. The problem was, though, we only had stories over the years that kind of gave us small glimpses of the return of the Ultimate Marvel universe, but we never had a story that actually dived into the Ultimate Marvel universe and say, hey, it's back, here it is, here's some stories, have fun. Like, basically, we got small glimpses, but that was it. And so it left fans wondering, is the Ultimate Marvel universe actually back or not? Now, with that being said, when the multiverse was remade, 2 characters from the Ultimate Marvel universe actually arrived or stayed in the main Marvel universe, which was Miles Morales and also the Maker. Now, the Maker is actually Reed Richards from the Ultimate Marvel universe who turned evil. At first, in his own series, Ultimate Fantastic Four, he was a good guy. But at the end of the Ultimate Marvel universe, he turned into a bad guy. And this all leads back into Jonathan Hickman. And the reason why, because Jonathan Hickman is the one who's writing this story. He also wrote Secret Wars, but on top of that, he wrote the Ultimates for a very short period of time. Now, when he did that, though, he basically said, hey, Reed Richards is going to call himself the Maker. Because again, at the end of the Ultimate Marvel universe, Reed was bad, but he had no bad guy name yet. And so when Hickman came in, he said his bad guy name is going to be the Maker. And so you had the Maker just going around doing evil things left and right. Either way, it was Hickman who actually made the Maker. I mean, Reed Richards in the Ultimate Marvel universe was made by Brian Michael Bendis, but the tail end of that series or his existence in the Ultimate Marvel universe, it was Hickman who turned into the Maker. Now, with all that being said, it makes sense for Hickman to write the return of the Ultimate Marvel universe, because he was the one who actually got rid of it. So it makes sense for him to actually bring it back. And so now we can finally jump into Ultimate Invasion after sitting here for so long and talking about the Ultimate Marvel universe being back. And so finally getting into Ultimate Invasion #1, we actually pick up at the Blackguard building. Now, when it comes to the Blackguard building, it looks like a normal building, a normal business building that was just painted black, and that is it. But then we see a bunch of men who are very armed about to break into this building. Now, Jonathan Hickman does use a lot of pages for this section. And the reason why, because at first he wants you to believe that this building is basically a regular building. But in reality, it's not a regular building, because when these guys break in, and by the way, these guys are using high-tech weapons to break into this place. But when they do, they're able to get 2 key cards. And when they get those key cards, it leads them to a private elevator that goes underground, which tells us that the Blackguard building was just a ruse, a decoy to hide the real thing underneath it. And so now the question is, who or what are these guys are about to break out? Like, who's kept down here? And why are they breaking this person out for? And we kind of find out that they are breaking out the Maker himself. Now, this is actually very important. And the reason why I'm saying this to you guys is because when it comes to the Maker, he is Jonathan Hickman's creation. I mean, yes, Brian Michael Bendis made Reed Richards, but Jonathan Hickman was the one who turned Reed into the actual Maker character. But on top of that, this is the Maker finally reaching his goal, or beginning the process of reaching his goal. Because remember, the Maker just wants to go back to the Ultimate Marvel universe. And so this is him right now saying, I am going to actually get back there. It's him finally reaching his overall goal. And so with that being said, we kind of find out that basically these guards were selected for a very special reason. Now, before we actually get into that reason, I do want to mention that he was able to actually contact these guards by using his therapist, or the multiple therapists that had came by to his room while he was locked up. But over time, he was able to reprogram them in a way to basically go back out in the world to find these 4 people right here who, of course, right now are breaking him out. Now, that was not the reason they were selected. The real reason comes very soon. But you did have the Maker ask these 4 guys to take off their masks. And the reason why, because he wants to make sure it's the 4 people he has selected, except one of them is not. One of the 4 he did select back out at the very last second. And for Reed, that is going to be a problem because he needs all 4 of them to pull off a trick that he's trying to use. And that trick is supposed to be used for one particular person. Now he says it's for a he, but that he is actually very important. Either way, we kind of find out why it was so important for him to have the 4 people he has selected, because he wants to make sure that when people come here to see that he did not break out because the Blackguard building was attacked, he wants to make sure that no one comes after him. He basically used some kind of genetic machine to take the 4 people who were bringing him out and combine them together into one body to make a clone of him. But the problem was, though, because one guy stepped out at the very last second, his replacement throws off the entire genetic system for the clone of the Maker. And so, yes, he does have a clone right now who's going to pretend to be in the room while he walks out and goes to do what he wants to do. But this clone is not as smart and, of course, not as complete as he wanted to be, which means that when whoever he's trying to trick comes by to the prison to look for him, to make sure he's still locked up, when they walk into that room, he's not going to find a complete Reed Richards or an Ultimate Marvel Reed. He's going to find incomplete Ultimate Marvel Reed Richards. And so we do see some time actually pass by. But with the time actually passing by, we pick up at Black Panther and Reed Richards. But on top of that, the Blackguard business building has been destroyed. Now, at first, you have Black Panther kind of wondering what happened here. Because at first, it does seem like there was some kind of random attack here and there across different locations, and maybe the government is trying to cover things up for someone. But then you have Black Panther say, well, actually, my contact tells me that basically the government is involved in what exactly happened here. Now, the Reed Richards you see right now is the main Marvel Reed Richards. And that is actually very important. And you'll see why here in a moment. But either way, you do have Black Panther and the main Marvel Reed Richards right now looking around, and you have Black Panther tell Reed, matter of fact, the government is trying to hide up this place. And the reason why, because this place was actually controlled by damage control, which means that they had something going on underneath the actual building, which we already know they did. It was the prison to hold the Maker. And so right now, as soon as you had the Black Panther tell Reed, the main Marvel Reed, that this was a prison to hold someone because it was made by damage control, you have Reed instantly realize, oh my God, they were holding the Maker, the alternate universe version of me. And so you have Reed and Black Panther try to see if the Maker is actually still in his prison. But of course, when they get there, they find the incomplete clone of the Maker. And so they're kind of like, wait a second, this is most likely not him. And so when you have the main Marvel Reed ask the incomplete clone of the Maker, hey, is that you, Maker? You have the incomplete clone just fall apart completely, which then tells the Black Panther and the main Marvel Reed, the Maker got away and now they got to find him. And for Reed, he's more scared of what he's going to do, not where he's going, but what he's going to actually do. But 1 week after that, we actually pick up at the Baxter building. Now, when we do, we pick up with Franklin Richards. And the reason why, because it's nighttime. Everybody is asleep. And so with everybody asleep, you do have Franklin hear something, but he thinks he sees his father, the main Marvel Universe Reed Richards. Because we have to remember, in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, the Maker and Susan Storm, they never had a child. They never had a child together in that alternate universe. And so for right now, it's the Maker pretending to be the main Marvel Reed to sneak around the Baxter building. But just in case Franklin or Valera sees him, he's able to actually walk by them and say like, oh, it's just me and your dad. Shh, stay quiet. And of course, Franklin falls for it, and you have the Maker continue inside the actual building. And when he does, he's going to a computer to do something. And when he goes to that computer, he's very intrigued and happy that what he found, that something the main Marvel Reed had basically made. But then we actually pick up 1 week later, where we actually pick up with the Illuminati. Now, this is actually very important. And the reason why, because the Illuminati was also made by Brian Michael Bendis, like the Ultimate Marvel Reed Richard was when Ultimate Marvel had the Ultimate Fantastic Four series. Either way, Jonathan Hickman actually reworked the Illuminati a tad bit. But with that being said, the Illuminati is basically a group of characters, the smartest characters in the Marvel Universe, who had came together and said they have the right and the ability to make big time decisions for the rest of the world. So anytime something was about to happen, they said, listen, we have the right to make that decision for everybody across the world. At the same time, they met up secretly, meaning that other people had no idea about this secret group of heroes who are so smart, but at the same time, so controlling. But the reason why we actually pick up with them right now is because they're saying that over the last couple weeks or whatever, the Maker has been going around attacking different places of theirs and also collecting things of theirs as well. But the question is though, what is he trying to do with all these different items? And so they're very worried about why he's doing it. Now for them, they're kind of like, they're also extra worried because every single item he had basically took is easily trackable, which means that as soon as he used one of the things that he has stole from each member of the Illuminati, they can easily track him, find him, and stop him. And so they're kind of like, why would he do that? He stole one thing from each of us, where we can easily find him as soon as he turns it on. And so that brings more fear into their minds, because again, they're like, this is basically an evil version of you, Reed. What is he trying to do? But then we see the Maker actually meet up with Miles Morales. Now, this is actually very important. And the reason why, because you have to remember, in Secret Wars, the multiverse was destroyed. But at the end of that storyline, it was brought back. But the question was, did the Ultimate Marvel Universe also come back? And again, we had no idea if it actually ever did. We saw glimpses, we got hints, but we never had a full story like this saying, hey, the Ultimate Universe is coming back or it is back. Either way right now, after the end of the Ultimate Marvel Universe, the Maker and Miles were the only two characters to basically make it to the main Marvel Universe. Now, these two characters, they know that they are from an alternate universe, and they know that basically their history or whatever was rewritten in a way to make it seem like they were always in the main Marvel Universe. Well, really, Miles Morales was. His whole origin was rewritten in a way to say, yeah, he was always here in the main Marvel Universe. In reality, he never was. He was just dropped there after the Ultimate Marvel Universe was erased. Now, the Maker, his history was not rewritten. He just dropped in and stayed, and that is it. Either way, it's the Maker saying, listen, you and I both know that we do not belong here. You and I both know that we came from an alternate universe. And you and I both know we want to go back. Now, he's asking Miles, do you want to go with me? Because I'm going back there, back to our universe, where we came from. And Miles says no. You go ahead and go without me, and you have the Maker say, fine, I'll go, and he leaves. But then we jump forward in time. Now, when we actually do, we actually pick up with the Illuminati trying to stop the Maker, because right now they were able to track him thanks to him using all the different things that he had basically stole from them. Now, when they get there, that is the moment you have the main Marvel Reed realize what the Maker is trying to do. He's kind of like, we have to stop him now. If we don't, oh my God, it's going to be really bad. The problem is though, when they actually try to stop him, they can't. He has some kind of shield around him. And we see that every item he took opened up some kind of portal, and he's going through that portal. But before he leaves, he says two things real quick. The first is that he plans to do what he was intended to do when he was created, meaning that make a world in his image, because he believes that was why he was made in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, to make a world in his image. But the second thing he says is actually a question towards the main Marvel Reed Richards. And he says, hey, real quick, I have a question for you. If you could do this all over again, would you basically erase me from existence? And you have the main Marvel Reed tell the Maker, yes, I would have, because now I know what you're trying to do. And you have the Maker tell Reed, I will always keep that in my mind. And he goes through the portal, and we're kind of like, what is about to go down? But to wrap up this video, and oh my God, it's a huge cliffhanger. But to wrap up this video, we actually do pick up with the Maker again, except on a new Earth, it seems. This Earth is called 6160. Now that right there is very important. And the reason why, because remember, when it comes to the main Marvel Universe, it's numbered as 616 Universe. But this one is 6160, which means that there is a possibility the Maker is trying to rewrite the history of the main Marvel Universe, but in his image, because we actually pick up with Peter Parker and Liz Allen. Now, when we do, it seems to be the moment where Peter Parker is about to become Spider-Man, when the spider is actually about to bite him. The problem is though, right when the spider is about to bite him, the spider is stopped. It's caught and put away. And it's put away by the Maker, which seems to be that the Maker is trying to rewrite the main Marvel Universe in his image, or he had created another universe that's very similar to the main Marvel Universe, but he's also rewriting it in his own image. But I'm going with the first idea, that he went back in time and he's trying to rewrite the history of the main Marvel Universe in his own image once again. But this is where we Guys, we are here. We are here. Ultimate Invasion #2. Man, this storyline is beautiful, y'all. Okay, so it does pick up where Ultimate Invasion #1 left off at. Now, with that being said, when it comes to Ultimate Invasion #1, we have to remember that the Maker, Ultimate Reed Richards, went back in time to recreate the main Marvel Universe into his own image. Now, we actually got a small sample of his work at the end of the last video, where we saw him find Peter Parker, and when he found Peter, he stopped the spider from actually biting Peter, which means that in his new timeline, there is no Spider-Man. And so just like that, he began to work into recreating the main Marvel Universe into his own image. Now, we also have to remember that in the old timeline, when it came to the main Marvel Universe, the heroes of the old timeline, they were trying to stop the Maker from going back in time to do what he wanted to do. Unfortunately, they failed. But knowing Jonathan Hickman, those characters right there, they might come back at the end of the story to technically stop the Maker at the end of Ultimate Invasion. Now, with that being said, this new timeline is up to the Maker. He's able to do whatever he wants with this timeline. Well, not completely, because when it comes to Asgard,
he couldn't access Asgard at first, which means that he couldn't prevent Thor from coming to life. Also because Thor is so old that by the time the Maker has reached this timeline, or the point where heroes were going to rise up in this timeline, Thor was already alive and been around. And so technically he couldn't change the idea of Thor being in this new universe. And so with that being said, Thor is still around. It's just Thor stays away from the Earth. And so we're then able to actually see more examples of his work. Starting off with Thor, we kind of see that Thor may have been captured. We have no idea, but we do know that Asgardians are not technically able to access Earth so easily thanks to the Bifrost being gone. Now with the Bifrost being gone and Asgardians being dealt with, you then had the Maker also deal with the Fantastic Four. Now remember, usually the Fantastic Four go into space and they come back with powers. Well, he made sure their space trip does not end the same way. And we're left to believe that the Fantastic Four are technically dead. But then we kind of find out that with Stark, or Tony Stark, his father Howard Stark is still alive. And matter of fact, Howard Stark is working with Obadiah Stane, who is usually known as a bad guy to Tony Stark. But in New Timeline, Obadiah and Howard, they actually work together, and their companies have been combined into one, the Stane Stark Enterprises. That is just a few examples right there of this new timeline that the Maker had made. Now we do get some more examples of this new timeline. So for example, Bruce Banner, he's still the Hulk. Apparently the Maker couldn't stop that from actually happening. Now another thing that happened was, of course, Steve Rogers. Now when it comes to Steve Rogers, apparently Steve Rogers is not at the location that he should have been at for the Maker to find to hopefully stop Steve Rogers, which means that World War II had went differently in this timeline, which means that there could be a possibility Steve Rogers died in World War II or he was frozen somewhere else. We have no idea. But then on top of that, we do see the Maker bring back the concept of the city. Now, we saw the city back in Jonathan Hickman's run on the Ultimates and the Ultimate Marvel Universe. And when it comes to the city, it's this dome where inside the dome, time moves differently. So one day here could be a whole 1,000 years in there. And because time moves so fast inside the dome, the human race has evolved so much that technically they're really smart, but also they have powers possibly as well. They are a next step in evolution for the human race. But then we're able to actually explore this new world that the Maker had made. And we actually pick up with Howard Stark. And the reason why, because we come to find out that Howard Stark is the new Iron Man of this universe, not Tony. Now, Tony is still around, but because Howard Stark is still around, not dead, Howard Stark is still in charge of the company. But on top of that, Howard Stark was the one to create the Iron Man suit. Now, right off the bat, if you look at that Iron Man suit, that actually is the Ultimate Marvel Iron Man suit, where to me is kind of like, okay, we're getting small hints of things from the Ultimate Marvel universe that are popping up in this new timeline of the main Marvel universe. Either way, in this new universe, Howard Stark is the new Iron Man of this universe. Now, later on, you're going to see who is the War Machine of this universe as well. Now, we jump into a conversation between Obadiah and Howard Stark. Now, when it comes to this conversation, it's really more of Obadiah trying to make sure that Howard Stark actually goes to this event. Now, we have no idea what this event is all about, but apparently Howard does not want to go. And the reason why, because the person in charge of the event, Howard does not like that person at all. But apparently Howard had already promised Obadiah that he would go. And so right now it's Obadiah making sure that when it comes to Howard, Howard keeps his promise. Now, we also learned that Howard was apparently able to cure cancer and any other kind of diseases out there in the world. And so just like that, this new timeline is technically better than the old timeline, because in this new timeline, there is no cancer, something that Tony couldn't do in the old timeline. And so his father is doing a better job than he is in this new timeline. Now, on top of that as well, we do see Obadiah kind of concerned for Howard. And the reason why, because even though Howard was able to actually accomplish so many great things, Howard is not trying to be seen in the public. And that right there is a problem, because the public wants to see the man in charge in public. They want to have a face for the company. And Obadiah is a great guy and all, but Howard Stark was the one who cured cancer and have fixed a lot of different problems. And so he needs to be the face of the company. He needs to be seen in public. And so this event is the perfect idea of him being in the public. Either way, you do have Howard and Obadiah leave for this event. And that is the moment where we actually jump over to Latveria. Now, of course, you would think that maybe we're going to see Doctor Doom, but we don't see him at all in this section. And matter of fact, what we actually see is the city. And like I said earlier, when it comes to the city, it was a concept that the maker did back in the Ultimate Marvel universe, that time moves differently inside the dome. And so because of that, the human race inside the dome, they have evolved to a new kind of evolution. Either way though, right now, the event is apparently some big, huge thing that is going to happen at the city. And so that is where we see all these different kind of characters arriving at this event. Now, with these different stars or different popular people, we're kind of able to learn a tad bit more about this timeline. So we do see Hulk, but apparently Hulk is very peaceful. Either way, he was invited to this event. Now, the next thing was the mutants. And of course, we still have mutants around, but apparently the mutants are not so hated on like they were originally in the old timeline. And matter of fact, it seems like some of the mutants rule different areas of the earth. Like Colossus and Magic, they may rule Russia. On top of that, Sunfire and Silver Samurai, they also rule areas as well. So it's kind of say like, hey, mutants are technically not that much hated on in this new timeline like they were in the old one. And so again, this new timeline doesn't seem as bad as the old one. Now you do have the Maker actually walk outside the city, but when he does walk outside the city, he looks up to the sky. Now the reason why he does that, because he knows something is about to happen. And he says, well, I'm waiting. And that is the moment where we begin to see a wave of characters coming out of some portal. Now, these characters are technically different versions of Marvel heroes. So different versions of the Hulk, different versions of Captain America, different versions of the Wasp. Either way, they have arrived from the future and their goal is to attack the present day. And right now, they're going after anybody who is at this event. And so you do have some of the heroes of this new timeline try to jump in. Now, of course, you do have Obadiah ask Howard, did you bring your Iron Man suit? But of course, Howard did not, because in the past, he was told to stop bringing around to different places. And of course, the one time he follows that direction is right now, where of course, there's a huge attack happening. But luckily, Obadiah does have his suit. Obadiah is the war machine of this universe. And so you do have Obadiah get into his armored suit to help the other heroes fight against this attack from the future. Now, while he's trying to do that, unfortunately, Obadiah is being overrun, overpowered, and it actually leads into Obadiah staying technically blowing up, but on top of that, that means he's dead and Howard Stark is knocked out. And so then we pick up with Howard Stark actually waking up. Now, when he does wake up, he is confronted by the Maker. Now, when the Maker shows up in front of Howard Stark, you have the Maker tell Howard, okay, man, so got some bad news for you. Starting off with the idea that Obadiah Stane, yeah, he's dead. Sorry for your loss. But then you have the Maker say, oh, by the way, I was able to actually capture every single person that came from the future that was trying to attack us. Now you have Howard Stark ask, why in the world they came back from the future to attack us for? And you have the Maker say, oh, they were trying to kill me. They wanted me dead. Now you then have the Maker say, oh, by the way, they also wanted you dead as well. Now, for Howard Stark, the question is, what did he do down the road that is going to have people in the future actually hate him? But on top of that, what did the Maker do to have people in the future also hate him as well? Now, with that being said, though, that is the moment you have the Maker bring in a bunch of people. Now, these people come from the present day, but apparently these people are technically the ancestors of the future suicide bombers. And so what you have the Maker say that if I kill off their ancestors, then they die in the present day because they need their ancestors to technically start the family line. But if they're dead, that family line is also dead. And so you have the Maker just go ahead and kill off these innocent people of the present day. And of course, the suicide bombers from the future, they also die just like that. Now, you have Howard Stark freak out even more. And the reason why, because Howard knows that if these guys came from the future, then that means that down the road, the future is going to try more extreme things to just remove him and the Maker as well. But for the Maker, he doesn't care, because to the Maker, he believes, because he's so smart, that he'll be ready for almost anything to come down the road. And so you then have the Maker actually take Howard Stark into another room, a laboratory. Now with this laboratory, of course, right off the bat, you have the Maker show Howard Stark that he had built some kind of time machine. And of course, we all know he did use that time machine as a way to travel between the past and present day, or the past and the future. Either way, with the time machine, he was able to actually recreate this new timeline. Now, at first, Howard Stark is not that concerned, but you didn't have the Maker say, I used this time machine to technically change this timeline, because the old timeline was not a good timeline. And in reality, he's correct, because in this new timeline, they were able to cure cancer and other kinds of diseases. Those right there are just a few examples of this timeline being better. But this is where you have Howard Stark get very concerned, because then you have the Maker say, oh, but I did have to move some different pieces around the timeline, existing pieces, meaning that Howard Stark was supposed to die. He was supposed to die in the original timeline, but because the Maker kept him alive and other things like that across the world, that you have Howard Stark realize this man had technically ruined the future. And that is why you have the future trying to come back in time to kill off Howard Stark, but to also kill off the Maker. Because thanks to the Maker moving around different pieces that should have been dead or destroyed, those pieces are now ruining the future timeline. But on top of that, though, you also have the Maker say that he believes Howard Stark was the one who built the time machine and could actually fix the time machine. And we're left with that cliffhanger right there. So guys, with
Okay, so we are actually going to continue our coverage over Ultimate Invasion with Ultimate Invasion number 3. Now, with this book right here, we actually do pick up with the funeral for Obadiah Stane. Now, this is actually very important. And the reason why, because you have to remember that when it comes to Ultimate Invasion, it's all about the Maker going back in time to create a new universe. Now, for some fans out there, they believe that he actually went back in time and recreated the main Marvel universe in his own image. In some cases, you have some fans out there believe that he created a new Ultimate Marvel universe. Either way, he did create a new universe. Now, with that being said, when it came to his new universe, there were a lot of different things happening that did not happen in the original main Marvel or Ultimate Marvel universe. For example, Howard Stark being alive and well, and also working alongside with Obadiah Stane. Because usually Howard Stark and Obadiah Stane, they were rivals.
they did not like each other at all. But in this universe right here, they were partners. They were best friends. And matter of fact, Howard Stark is the Iron Man of this universe. Now, you also have to remember that in Ultimate Invasion #2, we also saw a huge event going on in Latveria, where all the different leaders from different countries around the world came together for a very special event. The problem was, though, a portal had opened up. And when that portal had opened up, a wave of characters from the far future came here to attack the Maker. Because apparently with the Maker right now playing with time, something big happened in the future, where it seems like the future is basically gone. And so right now you have these characters from the future trying to attack the present day to get to the Maker to stop him from ruining the future. And so when we do jump into Ultimate Invasion #3, it's just Howard Stark kind of realizing what happened in the last issue. He's having a hard time wrapping his head around it all. But on top of that, he lost his best friend. And so right now he's wondering what should be his next move, because he was offered something very important by the Maker. And matter of fact, I'll bring it back up again at the end of our video, what the Maker had offered Howard Stark to actually work on, because it's going to be very important for the final Ultimate Invasion issue. And so that leads into the moment where you have Howard Stark go into a very important meeting. Now, when it comes to this meeting, oh my gosh, guys, Jonathan Hickman, my dude, this is a very interesting topic. Now, what I mean by that is when Howard Stark arrives at this meeting, when he looks around, he sees all the different world leaders from different nations across the world. Now, here's the thing though, because right now, when he sees the world leaders, he's all like, okay, cool, they're all good guys. This is great, until Colossus, Magic, and also Omega Red walk in. Now, when they walk in, he's all like, wait, hold up. Why are they here for? Because technically, they are bad guys. They should not be here right now in this meeting. And so, of course, you have Hulk say, actually, you're wrong. Matter of fact, we're all good guys. And that is when you have Howard Stark realize he did not understand the true picture of how the world truly works. Because you have Hulk say, when it came to them in the Maker, they realized that when it comes to humans, we always gonna have war. We always want war. And so we can never actually reach world peace because humans always want to fight. Humans always want to have war. And so the Maker and these leaders came together and said, let's find a way to control war, but to also give peace. And this is where I say, Jonathan Hickman, my dude, you have did something very interesting. And I would love to explore this topic even more. And so you have Hulk tell Howard Stark that the way they're able to actually control war for the human race is that what they do, each nation takes a turn being a bad guy. And what I mean by that is right now, Colossus and his family, they're the bad guys right now. And so, of course, they're doing a lot of horrible things. But here's the thing, though. The other nations are going to work together to actually fight against Colossus and his family. Now, once that battle is done, then it's someone else's turn to be the bad guy. It's a way to kind of feed the hunger of war for the human race. Humans always want to fight. Okay, fine. We can fix that. Someone else is going to be the bad guy for a certain period of time. And once that time is up, it's someone else's turn. And the last bad guy will begin the process of showing the world they realize what they did was wrong and try to be good guys now. And so it's a way to say we all take turns being bad guys, but also a way to control the hunger of war for the human race. And so with that, you have Howard Stark saying, oh my gosh, y'all are crazy. But at the same time, it's kind of like, are they though, Howard Stark? Because honestly, look at the human race. You can say right now it's actually working. Matter of fact, it is working. And so Howard Stark realized what he did not know about the world. He realized that his partner, Obadiah Stane, knew so much more that he should have listened to Obadiah to truly understand about the world, to get a better picture of the world. Now, the maker actually walks into the room. Now, when the maker walks into the room, it's really more the maker kind of saying, yes, what you just heard is actually true. But the reason why we do that is because, yes, we are technically controlling the human race and feeding the hunger of war for them. But at the same time, though, while the human race is busy, or the lower people are busy, us giants, the richer people, we're actually able to do more work behind the scene to be able to accomplish better things for the human race. And so technically it's a way to say we can keep the lower people busy while we work behind the scenes to make better things for them, but also for us as well. Now for Howard Stark, he's wondering, okay, then what are the better things that you're currently working on? What is the real work you're trying to do right now? And that is the moment you have the maker say, well, Howard, you know what? Let me go ahead and show you what I actually have been working on. And so that is the moment where you have Howard Stark meet up with Tony Stark. Now, when Howard Stark meets up with Tony, it's Howard right now telling Tony, I feel like I should fight against the Maker. Now, that is actually very huge. But the reason why you have Howard Stark telling Tony that is because what the Maker had told Howard in this video, but also the last one. And what I mean by that is, when it comes to Howard Stark, the Maker told him that he used a time machine as a way to recreate this universe in his own image. That everything's been happening right now in this universe is all because of the Maker. That this is not the natural order of the universe. And so with that being said, Howard Stark was very impressed, but also concerned on how the Maker was able to do all of this on his first attempt. Except the Maker said, oh, this is not my first attempt. This is my second attempt. That something happened at the end of the first attempt by the Maker when it came to this universe that he had to go back in time and try all over again. The question is though, what? What happened in the last attempt? We have no idea. And so right now is Howard wondering, maybe I'm the one who actually stops him at the end of his run. And he realized he has to do it all over again, and he keeps doing it over and over again until he's actually able to defeat me. That's why he's on his second attempt at the moment. And honestly, that could be it, because let's not forget, the Maker said when he came back to this time period, or with his second attempt, he said, this time machine, I feel like, Howard, you helped me create this one. But the problem is though, the Maker doesn't remember. And that right there is actually very concerning. And so that is the moment where you do have Howard Stark actually arrive at the city. Now remember, when it comes to the city, it's actually something run by the Maker, but it's also a dome. Now, when it comes to the city, time moves differently. And what I mean by that is, in the outside world, 24 hours pass by and that is it. But inside the dome, weeks, months, years could have passed by compared to our one day here in the real world. Either way, when you have Howard Stark arrive at the city and meet up with the Maker, it's Howard saying, yes, fine, I will help you work on your time machine. Now, here's the thing though, because right when you have Howard say that, he says, I want to work alone. And you have the Maker say, no one here in the city works alone. That means you as well. And so let me go ahead and show you who you're going to work with. And that is the moment you have the Maker introduce technically himself, but the Reed Richards of this universe. And this is where things get even crazier, because the universe Reed Richards, or this universe Reed Richards, is actually Doctor Doom. He's wearing the Doctor Doom mask. And you're kind of like, okay, what happened to this Reed of this universe? What did the Maker do to this guy right now in this universe? Either way, you have Doctor Doom Reed Richards working with Howard Stark on the time machine that belongs to the Maker. And my thing is, what if these two guys, Howard Stark and the Doctor Doom of this universe, is the reason why the Maker fails every single time when it comes to him creating his own universe with this universe right here? What if The reason why he fails is the Doctor Doom of this universe. But then we have to jump far into the future. And when we do, we actually pick up with similar characters we saw in Ultimate Invasion 2. The ones who went back in time to the present day to be able to actually attack the Maker, which means that now there's more of them here in the far future that's right now getting hyped up and ready to go back to the present day to fight against the Maker. But right now, they're all being calmed down. And the reason why? Because of their leader. And when it comes to their leader, of course, it is Ultimate Kang. Now, I said Ultimate Kang, but at the same time, we have no idea if it is Ultimate Kang. Now, when it comes to Ultimate Kang, you have to remember, Ultimate Kang was actually Susan Storm from that future of the original Ultimate Marvel Universe timeline. But of course, she failed, she lost. And the question is right now, is this right here still Susan Storm, or is this someone else? We have no idea. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. And so getting into Ultimate Invasion number 4, we do pick up with Howard Stark and also pick up with the Reed Richards of this universe. Because remember, this could be the Ultimate Marvel Universe timeline, but just changed thanks to the Maker into his own image. Either way right now, you have the Reed Richards of this new timeline and Howard Stark of this new timeline working together on a time machine for the Maker. And the reason why they're making a time machine for the Maker, because this is not his first time playing with this timeline, because apparently something happens down the road where apparently he's unable to move forward deeper into the timeline. And so he has to go back in time and reset the timeline all over again and to hopefully make this universe in his own image. The problem is though, he does not remember what happens down the road that makes him go back to reset the timeline. But on top of that, he forgot how to build a time machine that gives him that ability to actually do that. That someone did some damage to his head, and of course, he lost some things when it comes to his memory. But right now, you have Howard Stark and Reed Richards of this universe working together on the time machine. Now, while you have the two characters working together, you have Reed Richards of this universe tell Howard Stark, I know where the Maker comes from. I know how he got here. And that is very huge because now it seems like this Reed Richards knows the Maker is also another Reed Richards, but he comes from somewhere else or possibly a different timeline. And he tells Howard, I can show you where he came from. And with that being said, Howard is very intrigued. But Howard said, wait, let us finish this first. And then after that, please show me where the Maker comes from. And so after that, you then have Howard Stark ask the Reed Richards of this universe, how long have you been trapped inside this laboratory? And that is a very good question to ask. And the reason why, because right now they're inside the city. And when it came to Ultimate Invasion number 3, when the Maker showed us the Reed Richards of this universe in the city, in the laboratory that's inside the city, the big question was, how long has he been there for? Because when it comes to the city, we have to remember, the city times moves differently. In the outside world, one day could pass, but inside the city, it could be weeks, months, years, who knows how long. And so when it comes to the Reed Richards of this universe, he says, hey, I've been here for a very long time. And matter of fact, when it comes to Howard, he knows the Maker had put the Reed Richards in this lab a long time ago when it comes to time in the city. But you have the Reed of this universe tell Howard Stark that he knows he could leave the laboratory anytime he wants to. But unfortunately, he does not leave. And the reason why, because he loves the idea of being here with all the advanced technology that could help him achieve greatness when it comes to science. But that is the way the Maker is torturing him, because the Maker knows when it comes to this Reed Richards, there's one day he might become the next Maker. But to get to that point, he has to stay here and be involved with science nonstop. And so it's kind of like him torturing the Reed Richards of this universe, but at the same time giving him the ability to leave if he wants to. But this Reed is not leaving, because again, this laboratory has all the things he needs to achieve greatness when it comes to science. But then we jump forward 1 week later. And when we do jump forward 1 week later, we do pick up right now with Howard Stark meeting up with the Maker and telling the Maker, I finish it. I made your time machine. And this is great news for the Maker, because now he has the ability to go forward in time, but to also go back in time to make sure this universe goes the way he wants it to go. Because again, this is his universe in his own image. But then you have Howard say, well, really, what I did was I made a copy of your time machine, but a better version. See, I realized what was wrong with your time machine. Because you forgot how to build it, there was only a few missing parts. And so that is why you were unable to actually finish it. But when I came in, I was able to take what you built, make a copy of it, and then actually finish it and made a better version of it. And so with that being said, you now have a copy of my time machine, but you cannot use it. And matter of fact, I brought someone here because I feel like you and him deserve to go ahead and kill each other off. And you're wondering, what does he mean by that? Because we kind of find out right now, Howard and the Reed Richards of this universe are working together. And you have the other Reed Richards of this universe shut down the shields around the city. The shields that keeps someone from the future out. And of course, with the shields being down now, that one particular person is able to arrive inside the city to come after the Maker. And that would be Kang the Conqueror. Because remember, at the end of Ultimate Invasion number 3, we got a new king for this universe. But we have no idea who is this new Kang at all. And so, of course, right now, he's coming after the Maker. But the problem is, we have no idea why he's coming after the Maker for. Now, truthfully, we could say the reason why he's going after the Maker is because time is ruined in the future thanks to the Maker, which honestly makes sense, because with the Maker now having a time machine that he could use to go back and forth between time, he most likely ruin things in the future when it comes to time. And so that is why Kang had to step up and come after the Maker for. But the problem is, you have Howard kind of tell us that he knows who Kang could possibly be, but of course does not tell us. But he says, you two guys deserve each other. And so this is Howard saying, I'm down with the idea of you two guys just going at each other and most likely killing each other to save the timeline. Because for Howard, the problem he has with the Maker is the Maker came in and reset the timeline in his own image. And that is not fair, because to Howard Stark, when it comes to humans, humans should have the right to make choices. But the problem is the Maker took that away, because he made sure the timeline went his way, not the actual way. And that is not fair. And it's Howard saying, we deserve a future or a timeline that we actually have control over, not the Maker. And so that is why he is okay with Kang coming back here and fighting against the Maker. And so it does lead into a big battle between Kang the Conqueror and the Maker. And when it comes to this battle between the two characters, you have the Maker right now just upset with the idea that his whole entire plan, his entire city is falling apart. But for Kang, this is great because now Kang is getting the chance to get rid of the Maker. Now, when it comes to Howard Stark has something up his sleeve, but unfortunately, he has to do something else first to make sure his plan actually goes to plan. And so we do see him right now trying to get to a certain spot to be able to pull off this plan. The problem is right now you have both forces of the Maker and also Kang fighting against each other, but also attacking him as well. Because right now it's complete chaos in the city. Everybody is just fighting everybody. Either way, you didn't have Kang being able to hit the Maker so hard, it makes the Maker remember everything that he has forgotten, including the origin of Kang as well. But then we get this flashback, and when it comes to this flashback, it's really more of the Maker going to the far future. And the reason why he went to the far future is to see how great his work went, meaning that he wants to see how far his work goes when it comes to the timeline that he has built, how far in the future it goes, except he reached the end of time, where he was confronted by Kang the Conqueror. And you have Kang tell the Maker, you are my creator, you are my maker. And that right there tells us the Maker technically did make Kang. But again, we still have no idea who Kang is. With that being said, you then have Kang tell the Maker, you're about to witness my origin. And he blasts the Maker right in the head, which tells us why the Maker forgot about different things, because Kang technically blew off a huge chunk of his head. And so then we jump back in time to the present day. And so when we jump back to the present day, it really does seem like the Maker is about to tell us who is Kang the Conqueror? What is his true identity? Except you didn't have Howard Stark step in to cut off the Maker from telling us. But here's the thing, because right before you have Howard Stark blow up the entire city, you have Howard Stark talk in a way, and you also have Kang the Conqueror talk in a way where it seems like possibly Howard Stark is just Kang the Conqueror from the future, that somehow Howard Stark was able to survive in the far, far future and become Kang the Conqueror to just come back in time to come after the Maker. Now, that is what I truthfully believe here right now in this section. But at the same time, we don't get any confirmation because you don't have the Maker, nor Howard, nor Kang tell us the true identity of Kang. But right after that, you then have Howard Stark blew up the entire city. But we have to jump over to Latveria. And when we do, we actually do pick up with Dr. Doom. Sorry, not Dr. Doom. The Reed Richards of this universe, who's right now wearing the mask of Dr. Doom. Either way right now, apparently he made a promise to Howard Stark. And he says, I am going to keep that promise. And we see him right now packing up the other time machine that was built between Howard Stark and the Maker. And it seems like he is about to deliver the time machine to somebody else. But then we have to jump back over to Howard Stark, Kang the Conqueror, and also the Maker. And when we do, Kang the Conqueror and the Maker, they've been knocked out thanks to Howard Stark's explosion. But we do see Howard Stark get right back up, and we see him walk over to Kang the Conqueror because he wants to know the true identity of Kang the Conqueror. And so right when he gets there, he does pull off the mask of Kang the Conqueror to see who it is, but unfortunately, we are not shown who is Kang the Conqueror. But we do see Howard Stark cry, and that could mean a lot of different things. It could be Howard Stark, or it could be Tony Stark, his son. So then we pick up 1 week later. Now when we do, we actually pick up right now with the world leaders of this universe that was made by the Maker. Now we have to remember, when it comes to the world leaders of this universe, they were actually working together, but working with the Maker, because the Maker realized when it came to humans cannot have world peace. And the reason why, because Humans love violence. Humans love war. And that right there is so important. And so what he did was he brought the different leaders of the world to come together and say, we are going to control the hunger for war and violence by working together. And so what he did was he would have one person be the bad guy, and the rest of the leaders would attack that one person. And once that one person is stopped, it goes on to the next leader, and they just take turns being the bad guys. And with them doing that, it's a way to control war and violence on Earth, to feed the hunger the human race has when it comes to war and violence. Either way, with the Maker now gone, they're wondering, what are they going to do? Because that man was in charge. That man had built the master plan to control the human race. And right now they're wondering, what are they going to do next without him? But we kind of find out that apparently the city is still alive and well. It's just locked up. And apparently it could be locked up for 2 entire years. And the question is right now, what is happening inside the city? Why is it locked up for? Now, here is the bigger thing, because apparently this is not the first time the city was locked down. And so that means this had happened before. But what happened last time when it came to the city being locked down? What happened? We have no idea. But right now you have our leaders wondering, what should they do next without the Maker? Because right now it's up to them to keep their master plan going without his help for 2 entire years. And so we then pick up with Tony Stark, and you have Tony meeting up with Reed, the Reed of this universe. And right now you have the two characters going to work together to fix the timeline, because that was Howard Stark's goal, to change the timeline back to how it should have been, where the human race has more control, not just one guy. And so right now his goal is to have his son and Reed go back in time to fix the timeline. And so even though Howard is gone, quote unquote, he left behind a lot of different notes on how to fix the timeline. And that right there is very, very important, because now you didn't have Reed, the Reed of this universe, bring out the second time machine. Because remember, there were 2 time machines, the one the Maker made and the one Howard Stark made. Now the one the Maker made was broken, and so Howard made a copy of the first but made it better, which is complete. But then Reed and Tony were able to fix the first one together, and so now Tony has the ability to go back in time now to fix the timeline, to free the timeline from the Maker's control. And so you have Tony get up and make himself another Iron Man suit, except he does not call himself Iron Man. He calls himself Iron Lad. And that is going to be very crucial, I feel like, for later books when it comes to the Ultimate Marvel Universe. But now Tony and the Reed of this universe, they have the ability to time travel, to hopefully and finally free this universe from the Maker's control. And so we do see Iron Lad and also Reed Richards go back in time to the point where technically they had to fix one thing that's going to fix other things down the road. But apparently when it came to the new timeline for the Maker, it all began with one particular person, someone who was not found. And if that person was found, the universe could go back to its original way. Because remember, most times when it comes to a new timeline, something had changed in the past to break open a new timeline that breaks away from the original timeline. And so when it comes to the Ultimate Marvel Universe timeline, there was a breaking point. Something happened with the Maker to be able to make a new timeline in his own image. And apparently the breaking point was Steve Rogers, Captain America, because he was never found. And so with him being found, it could mean the original timeline for the Ultimate Marvel Universe could come back just like that. And so this was the breaking point that led into the Maker's timeline, the one he had control over. But now we're going back to the original timeline, the one we all know and love, the original Ultimate Marvel Universe. But with that being said, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.